This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm Talia, and I'm here with no-nonsense advice for navigating dating and relationships with confidence and ease, whether you've been dating for a while or you're just getting started. I believe dating can be fun, and I'm here to help you enjoy the process. Today, I'm joined by Trevor Hanson from The Art of Healing. He's someone I've been following for years. Trevor is a licensed marriage and family therapist who left a corporate career after a really hard season of life. Now he and his team help people move from anxiously attached to securely attached in a structured, results-oriented way that I think you're going to appreciate. We get into what anxiously attached dating looks like for both men and women, and what emotionally corrective experiences are, and why they're what actually helps you change your attachment style. It's not just insight or awareness. We also talk about why you don't have to be fully healed before you date, how conflict and repair in a relationship can actually build security over time, and why using AI to write your text is not a great idea. Trevor also shares his story of meeting his wife after doing the work, including the DM he sent her. He slid into her DMs, so you're going to hear that story too. At the end, we answer a dating dilemma from a guy who sent a rose to someone on Hinge that he actually is friends with on Facebook, and he's not sure if he should ask her out directly. As always, I love hearing from you. You can DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. You can drop a comment on Spotify or email me at talia@datingintentionallypod.com. And if you prefer to watch, all of these episodes are on YouTube as well. We are getting close to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, so definitely go check out my channel. And all right, let's get into it. Trevor, I am so happy to have you here on Dating Intentionally. I've been following you for years. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, we're going to talk about attachment, which is one of my favorite topics and something I think a lot of my listeners are familiar with. And I'm just really excited that you're here to kind of share so much of your expertise, because you've been doing this for a while. Like, when did you start Art of Healing?
Man, it's an interesting question, because I went, part of the story is that I wasn't in this world at all. I was like working for Tesla and like a corporate career and all that. And then life like kicked me in the face pretty hard when it came to like relationships and dating. And I realized I needed to heal some stuff. And so I went and got a master's degree. But it's been probably about I think we're looking at like 6 years of like total in the weeds of all of this. So it's been a little while.
Hey, what did you get your master's in?
So I got a master's in marriage and family therapy. Got licensed as a therapist in the state of Utah. And yeah, that's kind of how I started in all of this.
Amazing. Take me back. You said life kicked you in the face. Can we talk about that moment? How old are you? What was going on?
Yeah. So throughout my life, I really excelled in like career things. I was really good at like my job, and I could shake somebody's hand and tell them what's up that was much older than me in like a professional setting. And I had all the confidence in the world there. But when it came to dating and relationships, always struggled with confidence, like from elementary school on up. And I never had a name for it. I think now I'm identifying it as like, okay, there's probably some anxious attachment, abandonment fears, stuff like that going on. But fast forward, I am in this corporate career working at Tesla, feeling like I'm earning my worth and my validation through my success in my career, and hoping that like I'm going to be good enough, but still feeling terrified that I'm not. And I get into a relationship that I felt like, oh, okay, finally, someone's going to choose me. I'm going to be rescued from this like loneliness. And, I wasn't that old, but I felt old. I think I was like 26 or 27. And I had goals of like, having a more established relationship before that point, and they hadn't come to fruition. And so I felt like, oh, I'm never going to find anybody, and all the, catastrophic fears. So I got in this relationship, and it really was unhealthy. There was, my attachment fears, hers were probably even more extreme, to the point where there was a lot of just chaos and manipulation and difficult things in the relationship. Without getting into the details of it, It was not good. And it left me Afterwards, we had broken off our engagement to be married. And around the same time, I got laid off from my corporate career at Tesla in this giant nationwide layoff. And I broke my jaw. It's like everything happened at once. And, whether you're familiar with it or not, like there's like Job in the Bible and everything happens to that guy. And I was like, this is me right now. And so I was like, I need to do something about this. I don't know what to do when people start their lives falling apart or they have panic attacks. Like, what do they do? And I was like, well, I guess I'll go to therapy. Never had anybody in my life gone to therapy that I knew of.
Really?
Yeah. I just didn't, if they did, they didn't talk about it.
Can we just hold there for a second? Because I want to hear more about that moment that you decided to go to therapy with no one in your life who had gone. Did you feel weird about it? Like, how did you get yourself to go? Did you feel like the stigma around, especially for men?
Yeah. So there's a phrase that I'll borrow from the Alcoholics Anonymous where they say when the pain of the problem becomes greater than the pain of the solution, then you find yourself taking action. And so for me, I don't really remember consciously making the decision or struggling with it. I think I was just like, well, I'll do anything to start feeling better. I'm good with it. And luckily I didn't have like a culture growing up in my family that there would have been like a heavy stigma or judgment around it. So if any of my brothers, for example, because we're all guys in the family, if any of them were saying like, yeah, I'm going to go to therapy, like, oh, okay, interesting. Tell me about it. It was less about like, oh, that's weird or anything. I just didn't have anybody who went.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds like it was a really supportive environment. So it just made it a little easier to go. So I'm sure there are guys listening who are like, I don't know about that. But do you think it helped you?
It did. It started to, for sure. And I think I had like an amazing therapist who helped me a lot. I think this is a big question, right? Did it help me? Yes. Could it have happened faster and more effectively? My healing and my work, absolutely. Which is like my whole mission is to like improve that process and fill in the gaps of what I maybe didn't get in my own healing journey and give it to others so it doesn't have to take as long and it's not as painful. But yeah, it really helped. And it helped enough that I started to be a little bit inspired by it. I was like, you know what? I don't have a job right now. So we're starting from square one. I could go get another like stuffy career at a sales role or like a corporate role or like something. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and get a master's in marriage and family therapy and see what I can do in this space. And so I got a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, started posting online while I was in school, which was fun because that gave me the opportunity to like reach a lot of people even before I was like really qualified to do much to help them. And along the journey in like a very truncated version, I definitely did my own healing. And I think this is the thing that I like shout from the rooftops to everybody is that like something like an attachment style, mine was being anxiously attached, is not like your height. It's not permanently fixed. It can absolutely change. It was wired somehow in the beginning. And if we understand the mechanism that wires it originally, we can also understand the mechanism that rewires it. And so I did that for me. And now that's just like the mission that I'm on is help as many people truly become securely attached in a shorter period of time than they think is possible is kind of my whole premise.
Wow. Well, I'm so glad that you're helping so many people with that journey. And I'm so curious to hear like what you thought was missing from your work with a therapist that you are now like injecting into your work or what's different?
Yeah. Well, I think part of it is as a therapist, I just started to listen to why people were defaulting from their old therapist. Because a lot of times as a therapist, you have the experience where you say, have you ever been in therapy before? And most people are like, yeah. It's like, okay, why didn't it work? And what's interesting though? Most therapists don't actually ask that question because I don't think therapy itself oftentimes even has the lens of we need to drive towards a particular result. It's very much more like open-ended, loosey-goosey, like, let's see like what comes up for you and where this goes. And I get it. They're not trying to get super fixated on an outcome because that can create anxiety. But I came from the business world that was like very much like, let's get this result. And so I'd ask people like, why didn't it work? I think I've narrowed it down to 3 or 4 points in particular. But the first thing that people are usually missing is structure. They listen to podcasts, they read books, they go to therapy, they get a lot of validation, a lot of talking. there's a lot of putting out fires every week. I'm telling you my story, you validate me, giving me ideas, and I leave. But what it often lacks is like a through line where we have a plan, and the plan has a specific goal, which is, for example, become more confident, secure, grounded in yourself, whatever. And that plan needs to have really actionable steps, not just go think about this or go journal about that. It needs to be something really transformational where you're actually taking some sort of actionable step.
Right.
And people are like, yeah, I think I just kind of wander through the weeds of my own psychology for an hour. And then I leave and I feel like I paid a glorified best friend to listen to my problems and I'm not getting anywhere. And so that's the number one thing that honestly my therapist did a pretty good job at, which was inspiring to me. But we've tried to step up our game and give people a lot of structure because they're just hungry for it.
Yeah, I'm so glad you pointed that out. And as you were talking, I'm just thinking about my own experience in therapy. And I've worked with so many different therapists because I like being in therapy and I'm just kind of sometimes interested in just seeing what kinds of therapists are doing what.
Yeah.
But I always go in with a goal.
Yeah.
I don't really go in with a, let's see what comes up. Like I worked with a therapist for 6 years on my attachment, which I didn't know the word attachment at the time, but that's what it ended up being.
Right.
Because I'm like, something's wrong in my relationship. I know I'm part of this dynamic. What can I do? And we worked together for many years and she granted me the earned security, Nice. She's like, congratulations. So that was cool. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, and I will say, it's not to say that either party is lacking the mindset of having a goal.
I know.
Because what you're saying is true. Both will come in with the idea of a goal, but then the process doesn't typically look super goal oriented at a lot of times, meaning there's a ton of just kind of chatting, open-ended. There's a lot of, well, think about that or come again next week. Or, so what do you want to talk about this week? Versus, okay, these are the things we need to learn how to do, how to implement. These are the tools and the practices. Here's the homework. Come back and tell me how it went. We found that to just give a lot more focus. And I know I'll be accountable here. I've done what I call lazy guy therapy, which is like exactly what we were describing, right? Hey, how's your week? And I'm just going to kind of make you feel better. And it's nice. And I send you on your way. I'm repenting for my horrible ways, doing something better now. But I think that's number one. There's a few others, but that's probably the first thing that people are usually missing.
Yeah, for sure. So back to your journey though, because, okay, so you were single. You got laid off. You broke your jaw, which, by the way, that sucks. I'm glad you're all healed. And so you were doing therapy while you were single. Were you also dating? Like, how did you, I guess what I'm getting at is how did you start to really put into practice what you were learning in therapy to make sure you were healing your attachment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the context question first, I guess I'll give you that. I was single and I was attempting to date. And there's anxiously attached guys and girls have a bit of a different experience, a lot of similarities, but a bit of a different experience when it comes to dating. And the guy experience obviously is what I was experiencing. I'll give you both just for context. Yeah. Anxiously attached women will tend to get into relationships a little further because they just experience less initial rejection than men do. They just across the board, men are going to get a whole lot more like ghosting on that first date or not texting back and just like, girls blowing away like a tumbleweed and they're left in the desert of their own loneliness going like, what's going on? So they'll get further into a relationship and then find that the guy maybe starts acting more avoidant or there's problems that are more like conflict. Men will just experience a whole lot more. You don't even give me a chance. And I was experiencing the you don't give me a chance kind of dilemma. And I didn't get it. There was almost this confusion where I was like, well, I got this big, beautiful resume of who I am, right? Yeah. Like I got a great job. I'm nice to people. I'm pretty talented at stuff. I'm not the best looking dude on the planet, but I think I'm like decent. And so the whole list of what I felt like I brought to the table was the things on paper that a girl would say, I desire that. And yet I was not getting evidence that they did. And I know I'm diverting into another tangent here, but I'll tell you why I think this happens, the subconscious psychological.
No, this is good because I think a lot of guys listening can relate to this.
Yeah. And maybe women listening can confirm whether this feels true or not. And it's not the one end all be all answer, but I think what part of is going on here is deep down in our biological roles, guys are kind of in that safety providing and protection role. That's just where we're at. No matter how progressive you are, I think a lot of our biology is kind of wired that way. And if the person in the relationship who's primarily seen as the protector, kind of provider kind of guy, is the one who's anxious and is not showing signs of calm and the ability to be connected, that's not going to make anybody else feel calm or connected or safe. So I think it pulls safety out of the situation. And I would guess that most of the girls who went on dates with me would feel that anxious energy, that lack of confidence. And after, they probably wouldn't have some big, horrible complaint. They just tell their friends something. I'm almost imagining the conversations being like, yeah, I don't know why. I'm just really not into him. Like, he's a nice guy. He's a great guy. But yeah, it's like not for me. Where it's hard to put your finger on it, but it's just that lack of safety, that lack of authenticity, because I'm always people pleasing and trying to be whoever they want. I think it just detracts from success in the relationship.
I fully agree. And I think I definitely picked up on that energy with the guys I dated after, I really worked on my healing and I was entering the dating pool as in my new earned security, kind of just with that. And yeah, it can be very apparent, but also I had a lot of compassion, right? I was like, okay, I can see this person is nervous. And usually I would try to just sit with it and just like wait till things kind of, there was more ease. Maybe they would feel more comfortable. So sometimes I could really tell some guys just really had, it wasn't just attachment, it was like confidence issues, just very low self-esteem. And that would turn me off. So I will confirm what you're saying.
Yeah. And that low self-esteem, I think if you get maybe a second or a third date, it can turn into a lot of pressure too, where it's like asking for commitment too early, or just like kind of taking on a boyfriend or girlfriend looking role without making it official, and the other person going, man, this is kind of going fast, or like you're putting a lot of heat on me right now. And I know I totally did that. And I think I struggled there for a long time going, why is this not working? It should work. Why is it not going anywhere?
I feel like you're reading the minds of all my listeners. What about for women? You kind of said like they get into relationships, they can go further a little bit, but what about in the early dating process? What does it look like?
Yeah, well, I think men and women will share a lot of the same challenges. So I think what will be helpful is setting the stage of an anxious attachment at its heart, in the most simple definition, is a set of fears and negative beliefs. That's all that it is. It's fears of abandonment, fears of rejection, fears of not being chosen, fears of not being good enough, or just the belief that you're not good enough. And usually it's a little bit of all of those kind of mixed into this soup that lives down in there. You can't, it's not like anxious attachment is something like you catch like a cold. And so it's a little bit loose on its definition, right? But and the presentation is that you usually lack confidence. That's probably first and foremost. There's this anxiety to control the outcome of relationships. For me, it looked like, maybe coming on too strong, or just being so dang nervous and people pleasing the whole time that it wasn't a good experience. And I think between male and female, they're both going to experience that same thing. They're overthinking things. They're reading the texts way too many times and trying to figure out how to respond. Now, oh my goodness, I'm glad I didn't have ChatGPT back then. I would have been ChatGPTing every one of my messages. Yeah.
What is your take on this? Should our listeners be doing that?
No, honestly, this is my take on this. And this goes if you're in a committed relationship or not. I actually recorded a post. I haven't posted it yet on this. AI has the capacity to ruin your relationships and your dating relationships if you are using it to draft messages that you have not actually pulled from your heart first. Because it takes some emotional regulation and some healing to be able to respond from a regulated place, right? Let's say you and your partner have a conflict and you're wanting to make a repair. You could give it the whole context of the whole situation, like draft me up a reparative text. But if you don't actually feel it, then when you get in real life with them, you're not congruent and you're going to lose yourself. You're going to get reactive or defensive or whatever else. And it's going to be a really jarring experience for the other person. You erode trust. So no, I think AI is great for refining the words. Like, I don't feel like I'm quite there. I want to say this in the most compassionate way or whatnot. Like, what else do I need to consider? That's a great question for an AI. But just tell me what to say. Bad idea.
Yeah, no. I'm glad we covered that because I feel like it is becoming more and more of a thing. It's just so easy to just pop in your situation into AI and just it spits out a analysis and response. Anyway, so back to how anxious attachment shows up. I guess what I'm really curious to hear more about is, you talked about how it shows up in dating, But what if you are someone who feels pretty secure when you're single, but then the second you get into a relationship, you feel just that your anxiety, your anxious attachment is triggered all over again. How
Yeah.
does that show up?
Well, I guess maybe I want to understand it better because when I say
Yeah.
how does that show up? I go, well, it shows up like that. Like you don't feel anxious in some areas and then you do in the romantic relationship. I guess what I would say there is also to explain it is if you feel completely secure when you are single and you're doing great. But as soon as you get into a more intimate, romantic type relationship, or even early stages when you're dating and the relationship's not yet established, but there's potential for it, I'll just first say that makes sense. It makes a whole lot of sense because where your greatest commitment is your greatest vulnerability. And where your greatest vulnerability is where you can get hurt the most. And
Right.
usually romantic type relationships model the parent-child relationship the closest. It's the greatest level of intimacy you will ever experience is between you and your parents and you and your partner. And so it kind of throws your nervous system into a simulation. And if that simulation is really similar to an experience that was unsafe from the past, you're not going to feel safe right when it's turned on. And
Right.
so I think that's why people can feel really secure at work and they can feel very insecure in these dating relationships.
I love that explanation. I love just the idea that it's a simulation. I don't know why that really made me laugh because it's so true. I guess I'm speaking from experience, right? I felt really surprised getting to my marriage. Like, as we've gone through our relationship, we've been together for almost 4 years. I can sometimes feel and sometimes like my anxiety comes up more, or like my avoidance comes up more, even though I started the relationship from a really secure place. So I guess I want to hear your thoughts on that. It's like, can you kind of morph into different attachment dynamics with someone as your relationship goes on?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a different example than what you were talking about, but I'll give you a term. So in therapist land, when we work on attachment type stuff, there's this concept called a burnt out pursuer. And it comes from
Oh,
emotionally focused therapy founded by Sue Johnson. She's the goat of couples therapy up there with Gottman. They could probably like box and I don't know who would win. They're both amazing. But Sue Johnson is kind of her approach is where I got my original training in. And the concept of the burnt out pursuer is a complete example of you presenting in your attachment different. So it's an anxiously attached person who has been pursuing and asking and pleading and criticizing their partner to no end to try to get their partner to be responsive and to be connecting and emotional and all of that. Probably have an avoidant partner to the point where they are burnt out, they're exhausted, and they look like the avoidant from that moment on.
right. Because they're checked
Like,
out.
yeah, I don't care. Like I'm checked out. It's almost deeper than checked out, right? It's the real layer that I think a couple would have to get to repair that is for them to say, like in honesty, I can't be hurt like this anymore. I am so terrified that if I approached you, the person that I chose and I want to be chosen back from, if I reach one more time and you're not there, I don't feel like I'm going to be able to recover. And there's pain, man.
Yeah.
The magical thing
Yeah.
is when people actually get those conversations and they actually have them live and both are ready. That's what I used to do in like couples therapy work. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. You can change your presentation.
People always look at me like I'm crazy when I tell them this, but I am usually in bed by 9 p.m. and I wake up every day at 5:30 in the morning without an alarm clock. I know. I've always been a morning person, and what really helps me get a full 8 hours, even as an early riser, is having high quality bedding. We just upgraded our bed with Bowl and Branch, and I'm never looking back. They make everything your bed needs and what you need for a solid night's sleep. Their signature cotton sheets, pillows, blankets, and comforters are all designed to be breathable, incredibly soft, and they get better over time. I'd recommend starting with the signature sheets, and while you're at it, get two so you can rotate them because washing bedding is a whole ordeal. We also added the waffle blanket. It's hard getting up sometimes because I am just so cozy in there. The biggest difference I notice is how breathable the sheets are, and I'm not overheating in bed. I definitely run hot at night, and having Bowl and Branch sheets help me stay asleep, which is something that I've struggled with in the past. There's nothing worse than waking up because you're too hot or uncomfortable, and then you can't go back to sleep. And since we made the switch to Boll and Branch, I've been sleeping so well. Upgrade your sleep with Boll and Branch. Get 15% off your first order plus free shipping at bollandbranch.com/dating with code dating. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/dating, code dating to unlock 15% off. Exclusions apply. I don't know about you, but the second the weather gets nice, I spend some time flipping my wardrobe, putting the cold weather stuff as far back in my closet as I can, and putting my warm weather stuff front and center. And with the new season, I love getting some new pieces, especially from Quince. I continue to go back to my Quince pieces every week, and it might have something to do with the fact that they use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra soft denim. I just picked up one of their linen dresses in an olive color, which is something I constantly want to reach for in my closet. Like, throw it on, it looks good, I don't have to overthink it. And I might grab this dress in another color because it's adorable and I can see it being great for summer vacations as well. Quince clothing tends to be very packable, easy to maintain, and everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not a brand markup. I love Quince's high quality and affordable pieces, and if you haven't tried them yet, what are you waiting for? Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/Talia for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Talia for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Talia. I think this baffles some people because they're like, wait a minute, we started out so good and then like a couple of years in, it's like, what's going on? This doesn't feel the way it used to feel. And I kind of think as a relationship goes on, like as you have conflict repair, it's like there's some wear and tear on your relationship.
Yeah.
And, and that's normal, but I'm glad
Mhm.
we're naming it because like if you're experiencing that, if you're listening to this and experiencing this, like that can happen. And I guess
Mhm.
another question I had for you is, what does healing look like when you are in a relationship and your attachment is still being triggered, even if you thought you were more secure?
Yeah, yeah. Really, it looks the same as if you weren't in a relationship, which is
Okay.
the good news because it simplifies it a little bit. And this goes for both the anxious and the avoidant. So if you're listening and thinking, well, this isn't for me because I'm more on the avoidant and Trevor's the anxious guy, well, the secret behind both is that they're the same thing.
They're the
Anxious
same.
and
Yeah.
avoidant, they're the same thing, right? Remember the list of fears: fears of rejection, abandonment, not being good enough. One group does fight and fawn. That's the anxious. I'm going to fawn and people please and keep you happy, or I'm going to fight and pursue. The avoidant, they freeze. They don't say anything and they flight. They literally leave and go to the garage and like work on something. And you're left going, where did you go, man? So the answer on how to heal it, this maybe comes back to those pillars of what I felt like I was missing when I was doing my work. And if we want to heal an attachment style, we have to think about the mechanism that created it in the first place. And I know I sound like an engineer, but hold on with me for a minute. So the mechanism is we have emotional experiences in our lives, in our past, that felt unsafe. We felt not chosen, not good enough. And it could have been something minor, right? It can literally just be, hey, my mom was particularly critical and I always felt like I had to perform in order to be good enough. And so I built in this anxiety that I got to perform all the time. That's an example of a pretty minor, no overt abuse or anything. But our nervous system holds on to these negative experiences from childhood and programs into us signals that say, we're not safe. We got to protect ourselves. And that's what the anxious or the avoidant attachment is.
Right.
And too often we're approaching healing from a cognitive lens, not an emotional lens. We'll give people insight and awareness and books to read and all sorts of ideas, which literally just activates the front part of the brain. And deeper down in the base brain is where your attachment style actually lives, where your emotions are happening live. And so if we want to rewire an attachment style, we need new emotionally corrective experiences. That's the key word, emotionally corrective experiences. Those experiences need to look like experiences where you deeply feel things like self-love, self-compassion, self-trust, hope, self-acceptance, all that. Pick one. I don't care which one. And it needs to be strong enough and in a great enough dose that your nervous system basically gets convinced that you're okay and that you're safe
Right.
and that you can trust others. And so that's what can accelerate. I know you didn't ask this part, but that's what can accelerate a person's healing is if they have those doses of emotional experiences. They're strong and they're frequent. You got to get it in strength and repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And that can make a 20-year healing journey into a matter of months
Right.
if you do it right.
I love the way you're framing that. It makes so much sense. I love that you're getting technical. I don't mind that at all. With the just thinking about, I'm kind of reflecting on my journey with my husband. Like, yeah, we did have so many of those early on of like, where I was like, okay, I do really feel safe with this person. I feel accepted with this person. And it's so powerful. So for the people listening, I guess I want to hear, how can you create that when you're single, and how do you create that when you're in a relationship? Because you said it's the same, but I'm kind of surprised you said that.
Okay, so it primarily is the same, but then there's branches that can be different.
Right.
I'll give you that. So the core of why I say it's the same is that the primary goal, if you're going to heal an anxious or avoidant attachment style, is to first become more securely attached to yourself. And I know that sounds really weird, but usually there's this fear that like, I'm not good enough. I can't provide safety for me on my own. My happiness is contingent on somebody else. Really, it just comes down to you don't really trust you to be there for you. You don't trust that you're valuable. And so whether you've got a partner or not, that work is solo. That work is between you and you. I'll give you an example of what it looks like. Maybe we identify, this is actual process that we do in part of our program, what we help people become secure. So we help them identify an unmet need from childhood that might be influencing their anxiousness now, or they're trying to get that need filled in their relationships. So a client of mine, she had the unmet need of, she was just never heard growing up. She was the youngest. She was a girl. Her voice was little small, and she was the smallest. You're not going to be heard very easily. And so with compassion for her family, not like they were overtly ignoring her or anything, she just didn't have much of a voice. And so fast forward, as an adult, she feels this anxiety and this pressure to always be heard by her partner, right? This is life or death. I need you to hear me. And so she'll come home, explain her day, and want her partner to be like emotionally online, attuned, ready to go. And her partner's not always going to be that way. And when they're not that way, it can turn into conflict, right? Why do you never listen to me? You don't care about me. All the fears come out. She's saying them as criticisms, but really they're just fears of her own. You don't care about me. It's basically like you can hear her little girl self shouting, I am not being heard right now, and I'm alone, and I'm afraid, and I need you to see me. And so what do? We identify that need, and we get real specific. Oh, wow, that's the hot button need. Next step, emotional experience, is she worked to fill that need for herself as much as she could in a very tangible way. We want something concrete that you can go back to and you can get in reps. It can't just be, hey, think about filling the need or journal about it. You need something concrete for her. We came up with the idea of voice note on the way home from work. She's going to voice note, download how she feels. She's going to tell herself jokes. She's going to just talk to her best friend herself.
Yeah, herself,
through her phone, and then she's going to play it back. And as she plays it back, she's going to listen with loving ears as if she is listening to her best friend. You know what happened for her? She would do it. And in the beginning, it felt weird, but then eventually it felt refreshing. It felt loving. She actually felt the tangible emotions of connection, love, self-trust through the process. And now when she comes home from work, she's okay. She's like, yeah, we're ready to chat, or maybe we're not. Does that negate your partner's responsibility for filling your needs altogether? No, of course not. But usually there's an imbalance where you're trying to get them to fill your needs or fill your cup when you're not really doing it yourself. So that's one example that's actually solo work within the context of a relationship. I'll give you one that's specific for relationship, but I'll pause because I'm going on too long.
Oh, yeah, no, you're fine. I love that example so much. I think that's, something that could work also if you're single, if this is a need you have and you want to practice. And if you know you have that need maybe from a previous relationship, you could practice this before you're in your next relationship. So that's already there. What was the other one that you were going to say?
Well, I was going to make the point that you were kind of making is that that one doesn't contingent on whether you're single or not.
Right.
We, in the same exact programming container and groups, we have people who are recently divorced, people who are in the middle of relationships, and people who have never gotten into one and want to be. And we're doing the same approach, like that one in particular and many others. But one in a relationship that I think you're talking about, that you experienced, was the healing that comes from secure attachment with another human being in your life. And this is contingent on them showing up and doing it, right? So the idea is I'm really not afraid of conflict in a relationship as long as it's followed by repair, because repair actually brings you to a place that's better than before the conflict. Because most of us are walking into relationships with a lot of fear around conflict. Maybe we grew up seeing that conflict only led to disconnection and not being chosen or people being mad at each other. But in a relationship, every time you can have a conflict or what I call a rupture, every time you can have a rupture and then a repair, you start to build into this pattern in your nervous system where you're not afraid of the ruptures. You just kind of know it's going to be okay. We're going to repair. Yeah. Anytime we rupture, it doesn't mean they're leaving me, I'm not good enough, I'm being rejected forever, this is going to end. It doesn't mean any of that stuff, because guess what? Every single time we come back, we make repairs and I'm okay. Do I like ruptures? No, they're not very fun. But am I okay? Sure. That's security.
I think that's something we can all strive for. It's also something that, you think you might have a strong handle on it, but then you realize you still need to work on it. I feel like it's an area where you're always having to work more to really be good at repair. And I love that. And also just, you make it sound so tangible, which I really want listeners to know. It's like, this is something you can do. It's hard to do when your partner isn't on board with doing this work. I know with my ex, every conflict was truly a dead end because he was avoidant and just shut down. And I didn't understand at the time that when I saw him shutting down, I shouldn't keep pushing. I should have let him just shut down, process, and come back to it. Like, that's such a simple thing I know now, but I didn't then, and it made everything worse.
Yeah. And the good news here too, though, is like because I can imagine a person listening and going, shoot, my partner isn't on board. And I don't know what to do. You can't control a person, but you can influence them. Even if they're not yet on board, you become much more capable of influencing your partner to show up in a healthy way when you have done your own personal reparative work to become more secure. Because it looks like this. You're no longer showing up from an anxious, triggered place when something happens, right? They're shutting down, something's going on. So you're even keel. And from that even keel place, you're able to do things like offer up vulnerability and curiosity instead of maybe going to something like criticism, or diagnosing them as an uncaring, unfeeling partner, which we can accidentally get into that, it makes sense. But if you're from that anxious place, you're just going to be clawing at connection and telling them things like, you don't care about me, you don't love me, and that's just going to push them further away. And so if you create safety for you show up in a safe way, which creates safety for them, and they're much more likely to respond in that more healthy way. And I know some people are going to listen to this and go, man, that's not fair though. I don't want to be the one who has to do it. And that's where you got to decide, what do you value more? And it's a question. It's not a loaded question. It really is. Do you value fairness or do you value this relationship?
Yes. I always tell people, what is your desired outcome? And if it's connection, then yes, you have to do the thing and you have to be the one to lead it.
Yeah.
I want to bring it back to you though, because I'm so curious, to hear your journey after doing all this therapy, doing all this work, literally becoming a therapist, and then meeting your now wife. How is the beginning of that relationship after all this work? What did it feel like?
Yeah. Well, this is a great question because I don't know if anybody's really asked specifically what was the beginning of that relationship like. And my mind immediately tries to compare and contrast it to the previous experiences, right? Old Trevor, very anxious, undermining himself. And when I met her, I was definitely much, much more secure. And I say much more because security is a spectrum. Is anybody 100%? Probably not. Am I even 100%? I'm like the secure attachment guy. Oh, nope. I still have times where I feel it, right? But I was to the point where I remember having little bits of that worry. a little bits of that anxiety, maybe chatting it out with a friend who was safe. I had people in my master's program who are obviously great to talk with it about. They're like therapists in training. I'd mention like, yeah, I'm kind of worried about this, or I'm thinking about that, or, but it was level 1 overthinking, not level 7 overthinking that I used to be in. Much more manageable. And I will say the sign that I had that I was much more secure, because people are like, how do you know? I say, whatever used to trigger you reduces in 3 different areas. Frequency, it just doesn't happen as much. Duration, the triggers don't last quite as long. You get through them much faster. And intensity, they're just not as intense. They're not as difficult. And so I noticed the triggers were less frequent, less intense, and they lasted a lot. They were a lot shorter. And because of that, I absolutely showed up with more confidence. My very first message to her, I slid into her DMs actually, which is hilarious.
Nice.
My very first message to her really reflects the level of confidence that I had. I think before, just like any other guy, I'd like lead with a compliment or something. And I bet girls are kind of sick of that. It's like, yeah, I know you think I'm pretty, but like, what else? And I sent her a message and I was like, hey, because she followed me, I followed her back. We like some photos, you get the signs that maybe she's interested. And I sent her a message. I was like, hey, if this is going to work out for us to be friends, I added the friends to soften it. I was like, if this is going to work out for us to be friends, I got a really important question. And the answer dictates where this goes. With like a little smile face or something.
That's a fun message.
Right?
Yeah. Who would want to respond to that? I'm like, what do you mean? What is it?
Yeah. But it just shows like I wasn't trying to placate. I was literally offering the idea like this isn't going to work out potentially.
Right.
From the very first message. So it was a lot less stressful.
That's so great. I love also just want to call out that's like modern day flirting. It's like liking a couple of pictures of each other, following each other. It's just, it is what it is. But I hope that people after listening to this are inspired to do more sliding into DMs, because we need to embrace the modern day flirting and the modern day connecting, and just go for it. Worst case, it's just left in their message request and they don't respond.
Yeah. I will say the anxiously attached guy probably is sending a lot of DMs, and probably too much to where he starts to look like he's like in a sales role in business development, just trying to drum up leads. I think there's a lot of that can happen too, because they're like, oh my gosh, I need to do this. Man, if you're a girl, heck yeah, do it. I think I've once in my life had a girl message me when I was in that kind of scene of like dating and trying to figure it out. I would say for the anxiously attached guy, it's definitely a balance. Because you can get so anxious that anybody you think looks good, you're just firing off DMs all day. And then what happens is that they're friends and they're like, oh yeah, I got a DM from that guy too. And it becomes,
oh no.
Yeah, that happens. I've heard that happening for sure.
in like a small community. Yeah, that's going to happen. Yeah. So I guess I'm really curious, this I think comes up a lot for my listeners when you've done a lot of work on yourself, right? And you're in your early dating. And like you said earlier, I loved it. Like you're going to feel some of those old triggers. They're just going to be less intense, less frequent. And what was the third thing?
The duration is going to be shorter.
Oh, yeah, less duration. Right. But I think some people, the lines get crossed here because they're like, well, I still feel it. So does that mean I shouldn't go out with this person? Does that mean I shouldn't pursue this because things are still coming up for me?
No, that's the most simple answer. No, of course you're going to feel it.
Right.
I mean, I'll give you another example. So in my relationship with my wife, it doesn't really come up at all. I think an area that I also struggled with most of my life is feeling like I had a place among men, connecting with just friendships. I could always be friends with the girls. As long as it's platonic, like, it was good. As soon as like I was into it, it was like, oh crap, I just fell apart. But when it comes to guys, do I still feel it here and there? Yeah, I do. So I live in Hawaii and we've got a pretty small community, and it's all like married couples with young kids, like under 4 at least. Most of them are under 2. And, all the wives are much closer. They do a lot of things together. And then like the husband group, like we see each other and we hang out here and there. But when I'm going to do something specifically with them, and not always, but sometimes I still notice like the little bit of like, oh, I gotta perform kind of, right? Like I gotta be a friend, right? I gotta show up. It's so subtle. And it's to the point where I can almost hear it like another person in the room and just kind of laugh a little and say, yeah, look at that. You're feeling it a little, aren't you? Okay. And that's about it, right? Okay. It's where it becomes problematic is where it has an impact on your life or on the relationship. Meaning your life is, if you're so anxious that it's robbing you of your personal peace, it doesn't mean you need to cut off the relationship, but you definitely need to do something to heal that part of you that's anxious. Or
Right.
if it's causing you to show up in a way that's either creating conflict, they're pushing away, it's disrupting the outcome, then yeah, it might not also be a sign that you need to end it either. It might just be a sign that you got to work on this stuff for yourself.
For sure. Another question actually that came in from one of my listeners, and I think this is so relatable. She asked, should I just wait until my insecure attachment is resolved before I date? What would you say to her?
Well, this is such a therapist answer, but it's like, it depends. And I don't think the answer is resolved, because how do you know if it's resolved, right? How do you really know?
I feel like you have to kind of keep putting yourself in situations where
Yep.
you get a little attached to someone, which is what
Yep.
you're ultimately doing in a relationship. You are creating attachment.
Yep. And it's one of those things where it's like, no, I think you should put yourself out there a little bit. I think you should go for it. If you do notice that even from the beginning, it's highly crippling, like everything just falls apart and it's not productive to try, then yeah, cool. Let's pause. Maybe let's do some work, get to a level where you're starting to feel, with strangers, you're no longer over apologizing or people pleasing or, comparing yourself to other people on social media. All that stuff can happen when you're out of a relationship. Let's see if we can get those things to go down. And if they go down to a manageable level, then that shows signs of progress. Cool. Now get on that app or slide a DM or accept a date, whatever it is that you want to do. Sure. And then we learn from level 2. Like, great, you went to level 2. Now what do we got to work on? So that's what I would say. It's not cut and dry.
Yeah, I agree. I also what I like about dating is it does reveal where you need to do more work. How are you going to know what you need to do more work on if you're not dating? It's kind of tough. So I think parts of it suck, right? Parts of it are painful and stressful, but I think with the right support and the right tools, you can absolutely handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the good news, for the person who's not dating, but they want to do the work, like the relationship's not required, but the relationship does reveal some added layers, right? The type of work that we're talking about, like filling unmet needs from childhood, learning to reparent the deeper parts of you, reframing negative beliefs, connecting with a sense of peace that comes from something that has nothing to do with relationships. All of that stuff you can do on your own, and all of that stuff leads to security. And so no matter where you're at, you can do this.
Yeah. Trevor, this has been so helpful. I want to get into a dating dilemma with you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll take a quick break and we'll get into it. I don't know what it is about being in my 30s, but I've gotten to this point in life where having people over is just one of the highlights of my week, of my month. And especially now that the weather is nice again, I just want everyone to come over, hang out outside, we can grill and just enjoy the summer. But I realized that even though we have a patio, we don't really use it because for the longest time, we've had this old wobbly table with uncomfy seats that basically just fits me and my husband. But here's the thing, I've used Wayfair for so many pieces in our home already. So naturally, I started looking there for outdoor stuff too. And they have so many good options: dining sets, lounge furniture, lighting, grills, decor, everything in one place. And what I like is that you can really narrow things down based on your style, your space, and your budget. I'm 100% going to grab one of their 6-person tables and umbrellas because we get a lot of sun where I live in California. And you may not know this about me, but I am super into gardening, and I love that Wayfair has garden beds that are actually really affordable because I'm big on growing my own veggies in the warmer months too. I'm very particular when I shop online, so I spend a lot of time reading reviews, looking at dimensions, comparing materials, and Wayfair has over 20 million verified reviews, which makes such a difference when you're trying to make decisions for your home. They also have Wayfair Verified, where their team vets products for quality ahead of time, which saves a ton of guesswork. I always get compliments on the Wayfair pieces we have in our house, and I'm excited to make our outdoor space feel just as cozy and intentional this summer. Get prepped for patio season for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Given your story with your wife, I think this is the one I want to read. I think you will have a great answer for this. So here we go. By the way, if you're listening, you can submit your own dilemma in the show notes. There's a link that says ask a question, and we do one on every episode. So thank you for submitting. I, 37 male, sent a rose to a woman, 37 female, on Hinge that I went to high school with and have been Facebook friends with for a while. We weren't close in high school, but over the years, we've had some light back and forth in the comments on her posts. Nothing major, but enough to where we aren't total strangers. About a year ago, she was looking for a dog sitter for her elderly dog, and I offered to help her since I've done it for friends and family before. I just wasn't available during the time she needed, so there is some genuine warmth there. Over the last couple months, I saw her pop up on Tinder a few times, but wasn't sure if she was actually active on the app. Then, just this past week, I came across her on Hinge in the standout section. So if you don't know, standouts are basically a locked section on Hinge where you either have to you give a rose or you have to pay to message someone. That requires a rose. And I went ahead and I used one and I left a comment on her profile. She has not matched with me yet. If I don't hear back, I'm thinking about sending her a casual Facebook DM to shoot my shot and ask if she wants to grab coffee or a drink. My hesitation is that I don't want to come off as creepy, reaching out across multiple platforms, and I'm not sure if DMing is the right move or if I just take it as a sign she's not interested and leave it alone. I also want to get your general thoughts on seeing someone you're already friends with on social media pop up on a dating app. Should that existing connection be treated as a green light to shoot your shot, or does it actually make things more complicated since there's already a social dynamic to protect? Should I send the Facebook DM or just leave it at the Hinge rose and move on? So just to recap, they're both 37. They're Facebook friends. He saw her on Tinder but didn't do anything. Then he saw her on Hinge standouts and sent a rose. She has not responded. He wants to know if he should slide into her Facebook DMs to ask her out.
Yeah, I'm imagining, obviously, there's zero level of commitment from either of these people at this point because we're not even sure if she's seen the whole rose thing. She may or may not, depending on if she's active on the app. And this might sound controversial to some anxiously attached people because anxiously attached people are usually also very loyal people, almost to a fault, where as soon as they like they're treating them like they're married to them. They're like, I am going to be yours to the end. And I would say, check yourself for the overcommitment right now, that you're not living in fantasy land where you're committed to only her, and force yourself to get out of there by going on some dates with other people that you're interested in. Sure. Keep her on, it sounds gross to say the roster, but kind of the list, right?
Yeah,
the people
in the mix. I like to say in the mix. Yeah.
This is very better. Yes. Keep her in the mix, right? Keep her there. Get a little bit distracted and see what that feels like. Because if all of your emotional energy is pointed at her, then you're more likely in the way you show up to be quote unquote, I don't think creepy is even the right word. It might just be a little overwhelming.
I think overbearing. Yeah.
Great word. So first, mix it up, go on some other dates and some things. Number 2, is it okay to send somebody a message that you're already friends with? Yeah, absolutely. You think about this, it's and I don't know, maybe some people agree, maybe they don't. So many people are really concerned about protecting their friendships. For me, if I'm serious about getting married, if that's where this guy's head is, and I'm just going to project that onto this because that's where I was. If I'm serious about finding a partner, life partner, marriage, I'm not really concerned with becoming best friends with a bunch of girls.
Fair.
I'm not. I'm really not.
Yeah.
It's cool. I've got friends who are women now, a lot of professional colleagues that have become close friends, but that's not my top priority. And so if it doesn't work out, but there's a potential that it could, and you were already friends, well, that's great. Probably means you like some of the similar things. You've already done a little bit of vetting just by being friends. So that's the other one. As far as specifically what to do in this situation, do whatever you're going to do and don't overthink it. That's what I say. There's no right answer.
Don't run it through ChatGPT.
No. If she's truly not responding, give it some time. And if she's not responding, what's it going to hurt? Send a Facebook message. Maybe she's like, oh my gosh, this is overbearing. Okay, well, she was not giving you attention before. She's not now, so nothing changed.
Yeah, I love your answer. I agree. I think shoot your shot, go for the DM. And I love your advice of just like, don't worry about protecting the friendship, especially in a case like this where you're an acquaintance. You're not active. I wouldn't call this an active friendship. This is a very passive social media connection. So there's really nothing to protect. And I think if you see someone on an app and you are connected with them on Facebook, I think it's better to send the Facebook, just ask them out on Facebook. Like you don't have to match with them or send them a like or anything before or in addition to, just go for it. If you already know where, if you're already connected, that's much better than just jumping into their sea of matches and messages, whatever on this app. It's like, you're already connected. So in terms of what to say, I think the follow-up question this person I'm sure would have is, do I mention the rose? Do I mention that I saw them on Hinge? What do you think about that?
I always feel like less is more. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, is what I tell a person first. Like, don't overthink it. You do whatever you want to do, and that's fine. If you mentioning the rose makes or breaks the deal, then my goodness, this is way too. You probably don't want to be in that situation. Right. I would just act as if I'm not going to mention the Hinge thing. I'm like, hey, what's up? I was thinking about you. I'd love to take you on a date. I know this is random. What do you think about that?
Done.
I'd say that.
Just take it. Well, just take it from what Trevor said. Just put it in the DM and send it. Let us know what happens.
Yeah, please follow up.
Yeah. Trevor, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners about healing? Anything we didn't touch on that you think is really important?
I think taking a nod to what we talked about originally is the thing that I try to really help people to see, because it's a hopeful message, is that yes, you can change this attachment style. And when you do, you unlock a deep level of just peace in your own life and connection with others. And the second point is that it's possible. You can do it. You might feel stuck because you've been trying for a long time. And if you've been trying for a long time, then most likely all that means is that there's something missing in your approach, whether it's structure, emotional experiences that we talked about. There's another pillar that we didn't even mention, which is the aspect of how to leverage connection and community to heal, which a lot of people are actually missing. Most people don't have a group. Most people don't have any of those pieces. And so it's not that you're stuck. It's just, we just need to change the approach and change the method a little bit.
Well, I love that. That is very hopeful. And I really appreciate everything you shared with us today. Where can my listeners get more of you?
So all the social platforms, Instagram's where I'm most active. So go there if you want to go to any of them first. The Art of Healing by Trevor is the handle. It's a little long. I picked it way too long ago. Now I can't change it. But The Art of Healing by Trevor. I will say, in connection with this, if I can, there's a free little 15-minute training that I put together that talks about the changes that you need to make in your approach if you want to become secure. It's just called From Anxious to Secure. And that, if a person's sitting there going, okay, I'm curious on that, I'd go watch that. It's free. And so it's a good place to start.
I'll link it below. Thanks again, Trevor. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
So what did you think? What were your takeaways? I would love to hear. If you want to drop it in a comment on Spotify or DM me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. I always love knowing just what worked for you in every episode. So the thing that I have been thinking about after this conversation is what Trevor said about emotionally corrective experiences. Healing your attachment style isn't just about reading books or being more aware of yourself. It's like getting the experience of feeling something different in your body repeatedly until your nervous system believes that you're safe. And I also loved his reframe on triggers. It's about noticing when they're less frequent, less intense, and they kind of pass more quickly. It's not like you're never going to feel triggered ever again. I like the lowering the stakes on what progress feels like, because we're not aiming for fully healed. We're not aiming for perfection. You're going to feel triggered sometimes, but with the work, you're going to navigate them with more ease and grace, and it's not going to feel like such a roller coaster. I hope this helps you if you are struggling with anxious attachment or you want to become more secure. And I also want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for trusting me. Don't forget, you're doing great. And if you know someone who is navigating dating and could use a confidence boost or fresh perspective, share this episode with them. And if this podcast has helped you, a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify goes a long way. Once again, I'm Talia. This is Dating Intentionally, and I'll see you next time.